And welcome back to another podcast with Mr. Hagan. And on this podcast, we're going to work on continuing to build the personal income tax calculator. So on a previous video, I talked about inputs and outputs a little bit. So we're going to have the inputs right here, which is going to be personal data about yourself, which is where you can put your family income, whether you're married or not, your standard deduction, your retirement savings, child tax credit, number of children. All those kind of things are kind of personal things. And then over here is going to be in green is going to be your outputs. And so that's going to tell you what your taxable income is, your taxes owed, your tax credit, final taxes owed, average tax rate. Those are all the outputs that you'll be looking at. But we have some more inputs that we have to add to this. And those inputs are going to be the information about the tax itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down. So here we're looking at lines A4 through 9 are already populated, all the way down to line 9. But I want to leave this open down here because later on we're going to come back here and we're going to create a paycheck stub. That's going to include other taxes like your Social Security and Medicare and state taxes, local taxes, all these other kind of taxes. So what I want to do is I want to do my work, kind of the grunt work of our calculations. We're going to push down here to the bottom. So I'm going to go all the way down to line 31. And we can move this around later on if we want to, but I want to get this down far out of the way so that the grunt work can happen down here without people having to see it. We want this top part. Let me just scroll back up. We want this to be the part that, kind of looks nice. You can input information and you get your answers over on the side and you get your paycheck down here, and that all looks nice and easy to look at. And all the kind of grunt work that's going on, we want to keep that down below. Where we don't have to look at it unless we need to make changes to it. So what you want to do is you want to create a chart similar to the chart that I've created. So we have here tax brackets, the bottom of a bracket, the top of a bracket, taxes owed, and then tax brackets, bottom of a bracket, top of a bracket. Now why do I have this twice? Well, we're going to have data for depending on whether or not we input that we are single or whether or not we input if we are married. So that's going to be two different. For single, we're going to have to input data here, and if married, we're going to have to input data. We're going to have to change this data over here. So we're going to have to do this twice. Now, right now we're being really general, so I'm not putting in any information about the current tax law. I'm just putting here tax brackets. And the tax brackets are going to be calculated in terms of percentages. Okay, so this tax bracket is going to be, that's going to be right here, is going to be equal to the bracket that I'm going to put over here. Okay, so all of these, this A32 is going to be equal to E32, and then 33 is going to be equal to E33, and then you can just see these continue to change as I go down through. This is E34, E35, E36, and so forth. In other words, all of these are simply being set equal to these over here. Now let's format these. What's the formatting of these cells? So we got to do that first. So the formatting of these cells, I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to hit that control button and come over here and highlight these cells as well. And then I'm going to right click, format cells, and those format cells I want to be a percentage. Okay, and I'm not going to put a decimal place right now. Maybe we could come back and add that later if we need to. So I'm just going to call it percentage, and then hit OK. So these cells are now formatted. So I could put in any tax brackets that I wanted. So let's just make some up. Let's just say a tax bracket. The first one is 5%, and the next one is 10%, and let's say they just go up by 5 every one. And so what you should be noticing happening is if you did this correctly, then let's go up to 35%. If you did this correctly, these brackets over here should match these brackets over here. That should be the case. Okay. Now, where am I going to get these? Well, what I'm going to do with these is this bottom to top, these are all going to be defined as to whether or not you are married or single. Now, I already have these populated with the formulas, and so you're going to have to do that, and I'll show you how to do it here in a moment. But these are going to be the tax brackets that you face depending upon whether or not you choose to be single or married all the way up here at the top. Okay, so when you make a decision here, and this is B5, this is cell B5, when you make a decision right here, that's going to affect what gets populated down here. Okay, so we just got to go through this one step at a time. It gets a little confusing, but it's not too bad. So first of all, let's come over here and let's put in the tax brackets. Now there's real brackets in the real world. I'm just gonna make some up. So let's say this is from $0 of income to let's just pick a number. Let's say $30,000 of income. And I'm forgetting now if I okay, so I have to format these cells, and I'm forgetting if I did it, so I'm going to do it again here. Hit Control and format these cells here. So all the cells from bottom to top, all of those cells are. I got to redo it. Okay, hit Control, and then highlight these over here, and then I'm going to right click, and I'm going to format cells, and these cells are going to be formatted as currency, and our symbol should be dollars, and we hit OK. All right, so when we type it in, it should automatically put them into dollars for us. And then I'm going to go from 10%. The 10% tax bracket is going to go from $30,000 to, let's say, $60,000, and I'm just making these numbers up. Okay, and then this one will go from 60,000 and sorry, I got an extra zero in there. That one will be 60,000 to 120,000, let's say, and then we could keep going. I'm going to stop there, but we could continue to fill these out. Okay, so those are the tax brackets. These are the percentages, and these are the bottom and top of the brackets. Now, what are these going to be over here? Well, what I want these to do is I want the bottom of the bracket. So, okay, these I should have said, these are the, we're putting in here the single tax brackets. If you are a single person, then those are the brackets that are over here. Okay, so if you're not married, if you're single, then as we're doing it here, the bracket would be from 0 to 30,000, 300,000, that should be 30,000. 30,000 to 60,000, 60,000 to 120,000, and so on. Those would be the brackets. And then over here, I want the actual brackets that we're going to use to depend on whether or not we are married. So if we are single, then we just want these over here to just be copied over here. So how would I do that? Well, and if we're married, I want these to double, because the brackets, the top and the bottom, will double if you are married. So okay, let's write a formula for this. So this is going to be right here. This is B32. We want that to be equal to F32. Well, equal to it if you're single, but we want it to be double it if you're married. And then the top of the bracket will be equal to right here to G32 if you're single, and it will be double if you're married. So how would I do that? Okay, so I'm going to go back up here to B5, right? That's right here, B5, and that's where I'm going to put whether I'm married or single. I'm going to put in a 1 if I'm not married. I'm going to put in a 2 if I am married. And then what we're going to do down here, so that's cell B5. And so then let's come back down here. So what I'm going to put in here is I'm going to take whatever is in this cell right here, F32, whatever's in that cell, and I'm going to multiply it by cell B5. I'm going to multiply it by cell B5. Now, why am I going to multiply it by B5? Because B5, that's up here. That's whether or not I'm put in a 1 or a 2, whether I'm married or not married. So that's why that's going in there. Okay. And then in addition to that, why do I have these little dollar signs in front? Well, I think the language for these is a string. I forget what that's called, but I think it's a string. But what all that means is that I want to be able to copy and paste, and I don't want the letter and the number to change on these when I copy and paste. So the string says we're going to keep this a B every time, and we're going to keep this a 5 every time. So you can then take this. Sorry, didn't want to do that. So then we can take this cell, which is going to be F32, multiplied by cell B5 from up top. We're going to put that in here, and then I can just copy that, and I can paste it into the rest of these. Right? I can just paste it into the rest of these. And then that makes it nice and easy. And so what should happen is as I go down through these, watch what's going to happen here as I go down through the cells. It should be F32 times B5. Notice the B and the 5 stayed the same. F33, F34, F35, F36, and so on and so forth. Okay? So it's going to take whatever's over here and multiply it by 1 or 2 and put it over here. Same thing's going to happen in this one. So this one now is going to be equal to whatever's here. That's G32. Whatever's in G32 is going to be put into here and then multiplied by B5. And then again, you copy that, and then come down here and paste it, and then it's going to do the same thing for all the rest of these. So then you should end up with G33 if you're following up here. You're going to end up with G33 times B5, G34 times B5, and so on and so forth as we go down. So let's watch what happens. I put in my bottom and top of my brackets, and now let's scroll back up top, and let's decide whether we're going to be married or not. So let's say if we say no, we're not married, and we put in a 1, okay, then when we scroll down, it's simply going to take what was over here, and it's going to move it over here to do our calculations. Okay, it's going to move it over here to do our calculations. And what if we put in a 2? So let's go back up. If we put a 2 in here for married, that means that we're married. If we put in a 2, okay, now we scroll down, and now it's going to take all these numbers over here, and it's just going to double them. It's just going to double them. Okay, so that's a little confusing and a little bit tedious, and you just have to go through slowly. And if you have to back up the video and rewatch it, then do that. Watch each little part and slowly begin to build your tax calculator. All right, but I'm going to stop there. That's already probably too much for one video, so I'm going to stop there. And in another video, we'll talk a little bit more how to clean this up down here. Make it look a little nicer, and talk about how we're going to calculate the taxes owed, which is going to be the hard part. Okay, we'll talk about that on a future video. Thanks for joining me. This has been Mr. Hagan on another Econ podcast, and we'll see you on the next podcast.